and there are a lot more smarter people than me, and they're going to try to get things to work on their PCs. And I think those types of things will never go away. You know.
Yeah. As John Hammond said, life will find a way.
Absolutely.
So it does, unless it's kind of probably written into actual law that it becomes illegal or something. But there's every time a company takes down a game and gives no explanation for it, there's always the feeling that are they about to shadow drop some sort of update or remake of it or something like that?
Yeah.
Because you can feel it. You can feel it on the interwebs. But was it Nintendo that called mods cheating? I know it was in the press a while ago.
It was either Nintendo or Take-Two. It could have been Take-Two, because I know Take-Two have been really hot on GTA mods, and they've taken down various modding sites and stuff like that. And again, it's like, what are they preparing? What are they cooking in the background? And usually, I think the GTA 3 modding stuff that was going on, where they basically threatened to sue and take down various modding sites, and they actually ended up taking down a couple of modding sites, and I believe some of the reverse engineering efforts they were doing with GTA 3. And again, I think it was maybe, it wasn't even like a year later where they announced the GTA 3 Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, right? So you could tell that they were kind of just clearing the slate so they could announce the Definitive Edition of the GTA 3 Trilogy, which, if you recall, ended up being an absolute disaster when it released.
It was horrible. It was so hard to look at.
Yeah. So I think if we're talking about modding, it was probably Take-Two that did that. Nintendo's done stuff like that as well. Don't get me wrong, but they're more about protecting their brand and their IP. I think the modding side maybe isn't as important to them, but I mean, I mean, if we're talking about just hobbyist emulation, then I think the biggest issue is really the piracy side of it, right? Because emulation itself is legal, right? Like I think we can all agree that emulation in a vacuum is completely legal. It's gone to court. Various court cases have determined the outcomes of things like that. But the ROM side is the side that's always kind of the gray area, right? And it gets very, very tricky, because there's a certain point in time where I could say this N64 cartridge that I own, Killer Instinct or Doom 64, whatever, I have a ROM dumper, and I can dump this ROM into a ROM file, and this ROM is mine because I own this cartridge and I own this ROM file, right? But where things get tricky is when things like encryption and DMCA come into play, because if you need to decrypt a ROM because it's been encrypted with some secret password or some secret key that you are able to somehow lift from, the hardware maker by reverse engineering, then that's a gray area. That is cause for DMCA to, a DMCA takedown, saying, well, you circumvented our security measures in order to encrypt this ROM that you're playing on an emulator. So we're still saying that emulation is legal, but the ROM that you kind of circumvented to get there, that's where it's not that it's illegal, it's that it hasn't never really been tried in a court of law. Like, no one has really tested the DMCA law with regards to circumventing, security measures, right? Now, Nintendo is taking advantage of this, and that's why they're kind of sending out all these, heavy-handed DMCA takedowns and stuff to shut down various emulation efforts and stuff like that. But ultimately, no one has kind of fought back because no one has the money, resources, and what have you to go after Nintendo, or at least try to challenge this, right? And I think for me, that's probably the biggest thing, because everything that you play today, like if you buy a physical disc of a game or a cartridge, it's encrypted. It's encrypted with whatever security mechanism is on the platform in order to decrypt and play those games. And that's kind of the thing that is making Nintendo, basically just being able to take down all these ROMs, right? And these emulators. But before encryption was kind of introduced into games, and I know the GameCube didn't have any kind of encryption, so you could dump a GameCube game as a ROM file completely unencrypted. But I think after maybe like the Wii, when the Wii came out, or the Wii U, around then, like when the 360 came out, that's when everything started to get encryption, and that's when kind of DMCA really kind of started to take more precedent. So,
if somebody did challenge it in court, would you want to be a part of that case?
I'd be very interested in the case. I don't know if I'd want to be a part of it, but if I was called to speak, some testimony, I'd probably do it. That'd be kind of cool. But look, I would say this: like, I don't know if I would want to be a part of it, but if there was a push for it and money needed to be raised because you're fighting the big behemoth, I'd definitely throw money into the ring and see where it would go. But I guess the dangerous side is what happens if you lose, right? If you lose, then the precedent is set. Then that means that there's no kind of gray area. Like if you lose the case, then all of a sudden ROMs are now illegal, which means that all these websites that host ROMs, all of them could just be. I mean, there's a lot of that happening now. There are some sites that have had DMCA takedowns of various ROM sites and stuff like that. But this would basically eradicate ROMs completely off the internet, right? And that would be a very dangerous thing. So I think both sides don't really want to test the law because, both sides have too much to lose. Yeah, both sides have too much to lose. But ultimately, that's where we are.
Yeah. Now it's time for the burning questions round. Our guest has 5 minutes to answer 5 questions that are randomly generated from a random question generator that we got on the internet, including the trick question that I slipped in there. So, going to number 1. What have you been thinking about lately, Demetrius, that has kept you up at night?
Cleaning my grill. So we're approaching summer here in the US, and at the start of the season, I always have to get my. I love grilling in the summer. So when the weather gets nice and warm, nothing beats being outside, right? Yeah. My grill is filthy, and I've put off cleaning it for a very long time. I keep kind of making excuses in my head that one more grill is fine. I'll just leave it. But the thing is, I really just have to take the whole thing apart and just clean almost every piece of it because it's just caked in grease, right? So it gives me some anxiety. It definitely keeps me up at night. So that's probably the best answer I got for now.
You can't power wash it, just the super hose on it or something.
I've tried various things. The problem is this thing is caked, absolutely caked. So I gotta do it properly. You gotta just take it all apart and just do it, meticulously.
Until then, you're just convincing yourself that it adds to the flavor. I've got 2 barbecues literally there and there, so I exactly know what you're talking about. Question 2: How long does it take you to form an opinion about someone?
Not very long. I usually just observe the individual or the person for a little while, and then I'll just have a take on an opinion of them. And I will say that sometimes I don't get it right, but I will say also I trust my gut a lot of the times, and usually I make the right call. But it wouldn't take me long, maybe a couple of minutes, for me to formulate an opinion, I think.
Yeah. A good way to think, of course, if you make a snapshot decision about something, then you could always be wrong and you could always get yourself in trouble for it.
Of course.
Speaking from personal experience. So, moving on. Number 3, what food combination do you eat that makes other people cringe?
Ooh. Well, I don't want to say pineapple on pizza because I don't really care for that. That's not and that's what everyone says, right? I'm
It's
trying
a
to think of
default
something
answer.
better.
Yeah.
What
It
about
was actually a question that one of our guests asked another guest on it.
Being someone that was, I'm going to say this, and there's probably going to be some section of people that be like, well, "You're crazy," but I come from a Greek background. Demetrius obviously is a Greek name, and I learned to really appreciate some of the food that my dad used to eat when he was a kid, and he wasn't very rich. He was very poor back in Greece when he was growing up with his brothers. So they would literally just toast some bread and drizzle some oregano on it, and some salt and some olive oil, and I would eat that with feta cheese. And I can tell you, my wife wouldn't have anything to do with that. She would just be mortified. But